Welcome to Talkin Business. I'm Joe Catrambone, CEO of the Stuart Martin County Chamber of Commerce, and I've got a longtime member with me today, Tom Schinske, with Marine Bank. I invited Tom here to talk about not only banking, but another subject, cryptocurrency, that we'll get into later. So I reached out into the community to find out who knew about cryptocurrency, because I was being asked a lot of questions about it, being a chamber exec, as well as having this program, and people asking to have cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, a better explanation for them to understand. I reached out into the community. Tom's name came up. I called him, and he was kind enough to agree to come and meet with us and tell everybody about crypto and Bitcoin. But let's talk, of course, we're going to talk about Marine Bank, obviously. But before we do that, Tom, one of the things I like to do is sort of an icebreaker for people. Is that what brought you to Martin County and when?
I've been actually born and raised here in the Treasure Coast, and thanks for having me on, Joe.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you.
I grew up in Fort Pierce area, Vero Beach, Fort Pierce, kind of between the two areas. I've worked in Martin County for, I would say 20 plus years now. I started in banking when I was 19 years old at the Bank Atlantic inside of Walmart. And then I was there for 10 years, worked my way up through management and business banking, and then did a brief stint with BB&T for about 3 years as a branch manager, and then went to PNC for 10 years as a business banker, and now I've joined Marine Bank as a commercial lender for the past year. So I've been banking my whole life.
You enjoy commercial banking better? Is it less complicated? Is it simpler? Is it more productive? I'm not obviously not a banker, so I don't know about the business.
I mean, there's so many different facets to banking. I was always drawn to the commercial side because when you go out in this role, you have the privilege of being able to go out and meet with business owners. You see who's driving the community. You get to go to the events like the chamber and kind of find out. You feel more connected to the different community members. And it's part of the reason why I joined Marine Bank. No knock on the big banks. They're great. They provide services that are absolutely needed. But when you're in a small community like Martin County, when you're with a small community bank, you just really have that feeling of connection that you're able to really get down into the nitty-gritty of the community instead of being at that very high level.
So you just said something interesting to me. Again, I'm not a banker. I go through the drive-in. That's all I know about a bank. But community. One of the things I hear is we don't have a community bank in Martin County anymore. I guess Seacoast was at one time considered a community bank. I don't know if it still is or not. But tell me what is a community bank? Is that locally owned? Is that locally controlled? Is that what it means by a community bank?
I think, the definition's hard to decipher. There's a lot of government regulatory reasons for different community bank. How I envision it and how I think a lot of people envision it is, one, local decision making, which some of your community banks here that have grown very large could classify as, but also that they serve their local community. That's part of their footprint. So I would say some of the banks have just gotten too big. They fall under new regulatory guidelines. Where Marine's different is that we have true local decision making. Our underwriters sit in Vero. Underwriters will come out and meet with the client, which you don't have at other banks. But we also we can say, does this deal make sense? Do we have to follow this rigid box of guidelines that are partially due to that government requires them to do so? And with a small community bank, you can get creative where you need to.
So where does Marine come from? Marine Bank. You would think that's tied to the marine industry. Is that how it started?
It's actually not. It's always had that same name. It started on the island there in Vero Beach, and because it was on the water, the Marine Bank name was just given that way.
Okay.
So
yeah, interesting. So I've seen it. You hear it almost every day on the newscast, something about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and that honestly is one of the most requested things people call me and ask about crypto. And I tell them, call a bank. I don't know. I have no idea. So could you kind of run through that
Sure.
for us and talk about what it is, sh- how you feel, whether it's a good investment or is it risky. Anyway, just kind of give us an overview of your
Sure.
opinion of crypto.
Well, first off, most banks don't offer any type of cryptocurrency services. A few of them are starting to dip their toes in it. Full disclosure, Marine Bank does not offer, talk about, so all these are my personal opinions. However, most people would classify me as an expert on the subject. I got deep into crypto a couple years ago. I've always been very tech savvy and very interested in different, technical things. And Bitcoin's kind of an interesting marriage between finance and tech. And a lot of times people think of it as just magic money, which in a way it kind of is. But if you look at the US dollar, it kind of is the same thing too. If you see what the Fed does with the money supply. But what makes cryptocurrencies unique and kind of the founding principle behind it is the technology behind it, which is blockchain technology, which blockchain technology is innovative technology. So how blockchain works, just in a very simple way to explain it, is it's like having multiple computers spread out across the world, and each of those computers validate each transaction that happens on that blockchain to create a block. And once that block has been created, that it breaks off and then forms a chain. And then the next block, the first chain they call it the Genesis block. The next block, when it's created, creates validation for the first block. So as the chain gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you have all these validating computers that are attached to it. So it's not, if you go on an internet and you go, to your bank, you're going to have a server that holds all that information. Now they're going to have backup servers and different things. The way blockchain works, though, is that all the different people that join the network create additional verification. So it makes it super secure.
So let me ask you again.
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing. Who owns this block?
Nobody. Everybody.
It's a public block.
Yeah, and it depends on the cryptocurrency. There are currencies that have been created, a group that make it, they do it different ways. But Bitcoin, just to go back to a very simple analogy, Bitcoin is a public chain. So each person that purchases Bitcoin or does mining for Bitcoin adds to that network. So that's what makes it so that it is actually, most people consider it unhackable. Now, you can have your cryptocurrency stolen a variety of ways, which we can get into later, but the Bitcoin itself is verified. So even if part of the network goes down, there's all these individuals that validate it. And that's what makes cryptocurrency and blockchain so compelling for anything digital. Any digital assets, anything that you need to store on the internet, it makes it so that you can trust what you're seeing and it's verified. So if I'm sending you something on the blockchain, because you can go onto the network and see the transfer, you can verify everything. And that's what makes it so much better than anything else that you see on the internet now. Because you see something on the internet, but you don't know for sure that that's yours or that you can verify it. The blockchain gives you, peerless, trustless transactions. So it's a public ledger.
Okay, so if I wanted to buy some Bitcoin tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do?
Well, there's two methods to purchase cryptocurrencies. So there's a term people call hot wallets and cold wallets. And what a hot wallet is you can, and to back up a little bit, cryptocurrencies have wallets. So wallets usually have, depending on how you do it, so there's companies like banks. Coinbase is one, very well known. There's a whole bunch of them out there. Robinhood, which people trade stocks on, has gotten into cryptocurrencies. That is where you don't have your own private wallet. That's being held by a third party, just like a bank. So now they're treating those cryptocurrencies like stocks or like foreign currencies. So they kind of fall into their own asset class. And that's the unique thing about cryptocurrencies is they really are. This is the first time in 50 to 100 years where we're seeing a new asset class emerge. And it's obviously here to stay. It's not going anywhere. You may lose, there's thousands of cryptocurrencies, but 90% of them are probably going to fall off at some point in time. Kind of like during the dot-com bubble, you're going to have your Amazons and your Apples emerge from it, but there's going to be a whole lot of them that are just not going to make it for one reason or another. And they all have different use cases. There's so many different things you can do with them. Bitcoin itself wanted to be a world reserve currency. That was kind of whoever, and the creator's anonymous, nobody knows who created it, but that was because they saw how governments, went away from gold standards, government-backed security. They were worried about government overspend, so they wanted to create a currency that had stability, and it will eventually. They predict in the year 2100, the last Bitcoin will get mined, and then the mining process. That is a verification process to create a supply. They wanted to replicate the person that created the program wanted it to replicate gold. So it's basically mining for gold kind of, and they make it harder and harder and harder until the supply is depleted. And that's how.
So if I buy Bitcoin, what do I get?
Yeah.
I get a certificate?
No, you have 2 different things you can do. If you have a private wallet, which a private wallet's kind of like your wallet in your pocket. If you purchase the Bitcoin, it's going to go across the Bitcoin network, verified that
into
your wallet. Your wallet has an address. So your wallet address, you'll have a seed phrase that's usually 12 words that you log in. There's no person that controls this. This is just an automated system that's on the blockchain. So there's no people. It's just, and that's the interesting thing about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology is Ethereum, which is the other very popular cryptocurrency, created smart contracts. And all that is they're just programs, just saying, if X happens, Y does this, and then X does this. Well, once it's written on blockchain, it's immutable. It can't be changed because it's been created, it's there, can never be changed. So you have that peer-to-peer trusted transaction that will happen because it can't happen any other way without any person being involved. So it creates automated systems that can't break, can't change. They have to happen that way. So when you send Bitcoin, so say you have Bitcoin in your wallet and you send it to me, you know that I'm definitely going to receive it because you can see it in the blockchain. And transactions can fail due to network congestion, but you'll never lose it because it's stored to that blockchain. Even if, it's funny, people ask, well, what would happen to my Bitcoin if we had a solar flare or nuclear war? As long as a few of those validator nodes can go back online, everyone's transactions would still be in existence. So if you wanted to go buy Bitcoin, you can buy through the third parties if you're comfortable, like a bank, like a Coinbase. And then outside of a Coinbase, or Robinhood or one of those places where you want to buy Bitcoin, they're holding it just like your bank account would be held. So it's a third party that's controlling it. But if you opened a private wallet, and you can do one that's online, they have wallets called MetaMask, Trust Wallet. There are different ones that you can download, apps for your phone. You can also buy what's called a nano ledger. It's actually a cold wallet. You can disconnect it from the internet, but it stores, it's like a thumb drive basically, and it stores your Bitcoin, and then you can, that's the most secure way to hold it.
This is so far over my head.
It's hard to explain in a short.
One of the interesting things, just to touch on lightly, a year or so, maybe 2 years ago, there was this guy that had millions of dollars. He forgot his password, and if he didn't know it by a certain time, he would lose it. How does that happen?
So that's the seed phrase. So remember, there's no person. So you download this wallet. It's stored on the blockchain. So that program, that wallet's created on the blockchain. Your seed phrase is those 12 words. If you lose those 12 words, you can't recover it. There's no recovery. There's no person that can give it to you. There's no backup, because if they had a backup, that would make it so that it's hackable. So basically, your wallet is protected, but if you lose that password, you're done. And so it's funny because Bitcoin was worth, it's fun when I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2010 when Bitcoin first started getting popular. Maybe it was 2012. I bought $300 worth of Bitcoin with $300, and I had it for maybe a year and a half. And then it lost value, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna just get rid of this. This is stupid." I wasn't really into it at that time. Probably be worth. I think it's worth. Well, when it was at its high, when it was at 60,000, it would have been worth 7.8 million. But I don't feel too bad because I know I would have sold it at like $10,000. So.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Great. What other? What? I don't want to put you on a spot. Yeah. Is it a good investment or not?
I would say it's very high risk. It's very volatile.
Okay.
You need to be careful on which ones you buy. I mean, I wouldn't go too. There's so many coins, new coins being created. There's so many scams. They have what they call rug pulls, where people will create a coin, hype it up, get you as an early investor, and then as soon as people invest the money, they pull their share of the investment in. And unless you're very experienced, it's hard to know which ones are legitimate or not. Your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, those are the two biggest ones that I'd be shocked if aren't here to stay. So much Ethereum because Ethereum allows smart contracts, where Bitcoin's more like gold reserve. Ethereum's more like a supercomputer with money. It has a valuation because of its individual value, but people build millions and millions of things on it. Just to give you a couple examples, where blockchain could be extremely useful is, think about when you go to the doctor. They have their medical records on file. Then you go to a different doctor, they have their own, you have to have them sent over. And because of HIPAA laws, privacy and everything, now if you had that in your private wallet, and anything on a blockchain can be held in a private wallet. It could be pictures, it could be programs, it could be data, anything. So if you had that in your private wallet, you could go into the doctor's office, connect to them with your private wallet. They know automatically from your wallet address, that's you. You wouldn't need to provide ID, you wouldn't need anything. You just, hey, this is my wallet, I'm connecting it. Now all your medical records could transfer over. You could do that with home loan, or your home title, your car title, voting. That's really the only way you could ever make voting secure without to do it while you're doing it online, because you could verify, you could tie a wallet to an individual and they have that seed phrase, nobody else can access it, and you know for sure that that's them.
So they're stockbrokers, stock consultants. Are there Bitcoin crypto consultants?
There's not a lot of them. It's kind of because it's a new emerging industry. There's tons of media and everything. People kind of like, your Jim Cramers of the world, and of the crypto world that like different ones. The top 10 coins, I would say your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche. Those are all really good top 10 coins that have high upside. Crypto's had some massive. There was a coin not too long ago. It's called Terra Luna. I think it was the 8th largest coin. It had $6 billion in assets. They created a stable coin, which in the crypto world, when you're moving on decentralized exchanges that are not part of like a bank, where you're moving, through the crypto world, the problem is you can't just take Bitcoin and turn it into cash easily unless you're on a third-party exchange. So a solution in the crypto world is they created what they called stable coins, and stable coins are pegged to the US dollar or any other dollar out there. But for Terra Luna's purpose, they pegged it to the US dollar. So when you have that coin, it should always be worth what a dollar's worth. So you don't have to worry about the price fluctuations, because in crypto, a 30% up or down is a normal day. But what happened was Terra Luna, instead of backing their stable coins with US treasuries or one-to-one backings of US dollars, they backed it based on a scientific algorithm that was complex and too much to explain here. But basically, long story short, it crashed, and about $4.5 billion worth of people's investments went to bunk. So you have to be careful. If you're investing in cryptocurrency, do not invest more than you can afford to lose, and treat it as a high risk. A lot of people compare them to penny stocks because their volatility is high, and part of that is just there's not a lot of. So if you look at the stock market, a large company, if somebody moves $100,000 or $1 million in and out, it's not going to have much of a hit because there's so much money invested in that large entity. Where some of these coins, they may only have $1 billion invested. So if a big money mover moves a couple $1 million in and out, that could have it moves the needle a lot more.
Yeah.
Bitcoin itself is probably, has the largest amount invested in it, so it doesn't fluctuate quite as much, but it still fluctuates. It went from 60,000 in a year to 20,000. It got down to 17,000 briefly. I think it's back to 22, 23 now. But so personally, I like Bitcoin. I like Ethereum. I think both of those have a lot of upside long term. I think Bitcoin, just because of its price stability, doesn't do as much. But Ethereum, there's so many, there's games built on it. There's networks built on it. There's just so much built on it that I just don't see it going under for that reason. Some of the other ones, the Solana and Avalanche are similar to Ethereum. They're faster. They have network fees that are much cheaper. A lot of different reasons people like them better, and for some reasons, but they don't have they don't have as big of a network built on
Okay.
it. So
So your advice to anyone watching, and me in
Yeah.
particular, if I'm interested in investing, how do I proceed?
I would probably go the safe way and go to a third party, as you kind of learn and understand it. I wouldn't go to what they call decentralized and download a private wallet. That gets very complex. So companies like Coinbase, Coinbase is a good one. Robinhood's a good one. There's a few of them out there. If you want to accept cryptocurrencies and you're a business, they have BitPay. They're very well known and well liked. There's another company called Gemini that you can go to. They're out of Wisconsin.
So it's all you do it all online.
Yeah,
So it's
you can
obviously-
most of them are just apps you can download, but you can do it online. So all of it's networked, obviously. There's really no place you can go to invest. They have Bitcoin ATMs. They're very high fees, so I don't know if I would recommend them. But those companies are bigger. There has been some larger companies that have gone debunked, so make sure they're U.S. based so you have that protection. There was one recently, Voyager, out of Canada, that has gone under. So that looks like they're going to recoup. The investors are going to get their funds still, but this is kind of like the Wild West, early banking before there was regulations and things. And I'm not a big regulation guy, but crypto needs some. And most of the crypto community agrees we want to see some regulation so that there's stability in the market. I think that will help crypto's valuations. But part of what keeps crypto at bay is because it's so high risk right now.
Is this a wave of the future?
It has to be. I mean, I honestly, I think anything on the internet will eventually be on blockchain.
Wow. So are the feds, to your knowledge, are the feds doing anything to adjust to where currency isn't going to be a big thing anymore?
Well,
in the
it's funny
future?
because there's I talked about stable coins earlier. The most popular and most respected, well-guarded stable coin is called USDC, and it is made by a company called Circle, and they back it 1-to-1 to cash in U.S. Treasuries. So most people feel like that's the safest one. It's been audited numerous times by the U.S. government. The belief, and this is just rumor, but the belief is that they're going to partner with Circle to make digital U.S. dollars.
You say the U.S.
U.S. government, yeah.
is going to
The U.S.
partner?
Treasury is going, and we think that's going to happen probably, at least I think that's going to happen within the next 5 years. China's doing the digital yuan now. They kicked out most other currencies because they don't want competition, and they're going to have their own digital currency. There's a lot of advantages to it, but the scary part to it, if you believe in privacy, and it's funny because a lot of people think, crypto is for criminals. Well, crypto is usually the worst thing you can use to commit crime because it's a public blockchain. You can see everything on it. So, a lot of times these people have private wallets, so you can't identify it to them, and especially if they're overseas. There's reasons, but most of the time those people get caught because you can follow the trail. You can find out exactly where that money went. So if you have a digital U.S. currency, it's a little scary because now the government knows exactly what you're spending your money on everywhere.
So the criminal can't wash money.
No.
It's
Yeah.
for public view. So
Yep.
it's because a lot of people. That's what I heard early on. That
Yeah.
the criminals, they could run drug money through there and it could never be traced.
And early on, because when you're using private wallets, not on a Coinbase type company, they still don't know that you are the owner of that wallet. They can see the wallet and they can see all the transactions, but they don't know who actually owns that wallet. In the future, the government, probably part of regulation, is you're going to have to do the KYC process to verify you own that wallet address. And then once your name is tied to that wallet address, everybody knows every transaction you do on it.
So do the feds or the IRS, do they go on that, follow it?
Yeah.
They check it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, that's how people get caught for laundering and stuff with it now.
yeah. Okay.
Because it's a new technology and the government's slow. It's taking a while for them to get people who know how to do that, but it's happening fast because it's evolving so quickly.
So will checking be a thing of the past in the future?
I wouldn't be surprised. In 10 years from now, it's probably going to look very different than what we see today.
Yeah.
But it's going to take people a long time to adapt. I mean, think about how long it took people to get comfortable with online banking.
Yeah,
That was a long process.
I'm still not there.
I mean, online banking was getting big when I first got into banking, almost 20 years ago. So it was.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I like to go through the drive-in window and give them my check and get some cash back.
Well, the one thing, and it's funny, we always say this at Marine Bank, because a lot of the super large banks have mega technology, and even the small banks, we have pretty good online banking and treasury products, but you can never replace people. So you're always going to want to deal with people.
It's one of my nightmares. I have to call an 800 number.
Yeah.
You have to go through literally 10 steps before if you ever get to speak to a real person.
Yeah.
Used to be you can hit 0 for operator and you get someone, no more.
And no matter what, their menu options have changed.
Always. So what do you see, and just from your own perspective, obviously, what do you envision the drastic changes that are going to occur in the financial world in the next 25 years?
Well, I think what blockchain will allow and will facilitate, I think on the first step, the first side, is going to be international payments. That's part of what made crypto popular to begin with, and that's why you saw El Salvador, embrace Bitcoin so quickly. Some of the African countries embrace Bitcoin so quickly because the population there pays so much money in remittance fees to transfer funds from if they've gone to work in a different country. So a lot of that, I think at one point El Salvador's remittance fees was like 30% of the government's revenue, which is unbelievable. So transferring crypto happens nearly instantaneously and costs almost nothing, a few cents on the dollar, if that, a fraction of a penny. So I think international payments will be the first large scale adoption, in my opinion, because you having to send a wire. If I had to send a wire today to somewhere in the Middle East, or sending a wire to Israel or some other country that has multiple steps, it has to go through 4 banks. It's going to get dinged 4 times for fees. It could take several days to a week, maybe longer. You got to verify both parties, and that's where having that blockchain technology, if you're tied to a wallet, I'm tied to a wallet, you hit send, it's coming from me, it's going to you. You don't need any intermediaries to verify that.
So it actually saves us money.
Yep. It's faster.
And it shortens the process.
And when a wire in a bank, a wire is one of the riskiest things that can be done because you can't get it back. Crypto's the same way. Once that money's sent, it's gone. But you have to verify that that's that person. When you have that wallet, because it's so hard to get, you can only get into the wallet by using that seed phrase, that's your verification. And then the person receiving is the same thing. From that wallet address, they're who they are. It saves a lot of, it adds so much more to the verification process.
So when I pull a dollar bill out, that guarantees me that the U.S. government has gold bullion in Fort Knox to substantiate or to protect my $1 note. What do I have like that if I'm buying crypto or Bitcoin?
Well, the gold, the U.S. went off the gold standard a long time ago, so you really don't.
Oh, okay.
You don't really have that gold standard. You just basically have,
Well, I have the U.S.
Yeah, you have the government's reputation.
Okay.
Which, as they print more and more money, that gets a little scarier as time progresses.
Yeah. Sometimes the paper will be worth more than what its value.
And basically all money, since the dawn of time, you look at even the ancient days, they used a certain type of seashell as currency. Money really only has value that people associate its worth. Gold really is only worth something because it's a desirable object and it's of scarce supply. Bitcoin has both of those things. People want it and there's a scarce supply. Gold on one hand, if you think about if you own gold and you want to go pay someone with gold, you really can't do it. So
hawk it.
And then also if you have a large amount of gold, a large amount of wealth, and you tried to transport it, it's extremely challenging, extremely dangerous. Bitcoin kind of solves both of those problems by being easily transferable, and you have that verification process. You know exactly its valuation based on how many people want to buy it versus how much is available. so that it sets its own price that way. So it has that ability. When you look at precious metals, just kind of a side tangent, precious metals are worth something because of their scarcity today. When we look at, Elon Musk and what he's doing with SpaceX, what Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin is doing, they're not just doing it for fun. And they've talked about this many times, a lot of these companies. Those asteroids have rare earth minerals that are worth quintillions of dollars. So, as an entrepreneur, their goal is to mine those. I mean, I've been hearing reports, it could be as soon as 5 years. So, they grab an asteroid that's solid gold, a couple
Wow.
100 tons of gold.
Yeah.
Now the price of gold just completely is reset. And you could see that with a lot of precious metals.
Well, we could talk about this for hours. So, but we're winding down. Is there anything we missed that you'd like to talk about?
There's so many. It's funny, when I first got into Bitcoin and just cryptocurrencies, you probably heard of Dogecoin. That was the one that Elon Musk talked about.
Yeah.
It's not I know a lot of people believe in it. It might be the people's coin one day. It will never be worth a lot of money. And the reason it will never be worth a lot of money is they release 100 million of it every single month. I mean, they keep the supply huge all the time. So, but when I first bought it, at fractions of a penny. My wife had mentioned to me, hey, I bought this. And I was like, I'll throw a couple $100s in there. What the heck, and I really didn't know a lot about cryptocurrencies. I was kind of just getting into it. And then I noticed a couple months later, it went crazy. And it was worth $10,000 something. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is best investment I've made in 3 months, And so I started looking into it, and then I started getting deeper and deeper. And I mean, there's so many rabbit holes in cryptocurrency you can go down. There's so many different vehicles, different things you can do with it. Has so many use cases that, it really is, it's a neat world. It's something that I would highly recommend anyone to look a little deeper into. Don't just think of it as money. Think of it as a sophisticated programming solution that has a value.
And do your homework.
Yeah, and make sure you do your homework. I mean, don't just willy-nilly buy it. So,
Tom, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
No problem.
And we'll need to talk more about this.
Will do. I'll be happy.
Okay,
Happy to.
thanks.